Hello, good afternoon. Thank you all who are joining us right on time. We are so excited to have this book talk, and I think we'll wait maybe another minute or two just to make sure that we catch everyone at the top of the show, and then we will kick it right off. So in the meantime, feel free to sit back, grab a beverage. Also, feel free to let us know in the chat where you're joining in from. It's always great to hear where everyone's joining since it is a virtual event. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We have, of course, some Bay Area residents. Thank you for joining from DC. Awesome. And SoCal. All right. Well, my introduction will take a couple minutes, so I will go ahead and get started, and we will keep going. But I do want to make sure we have plenty of time for Kent and Freddie's conversation later today. So I would like to just kick us off with a quick welcome as well as a land acknowledgement. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. It's wonderful to see you all virtually. My name is Akemi Chani Mai, and I am the program manager at the Oakland Asian Cultural Center. OACC's mission is to build vibrant communities through API arts and cultural programs that foster intergenerational and cross-cultural dialogue, understanding, collaboration, and social justice. So we invite you also, if you want to learn more about our events, our website is oacc.cc. But otherwise, I would now like to share a land acknowledgement. Though today's event is being presented in a virtual space, OACC is physically based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we would like to acknowledge the legacy and presence of the indigenous peoples who have and continue to steward this land. We encourage you to use the Native Land website as a starting point to learn whose land you're living on. I will share a land acknowledgement provided by Canyon Sayers Roots, a member of the Costanoan, Ohlone, and Chumash people. She and her mother, tribal chairwoman Anne Marie Sayers, are involved in the preservation of Indian Canyon, providing it as a space for all indigenous peoples in need of land for ceremony. We are in Huichin. The first language spoken on these lands is Chochenyo. We are virtually gathered on the traditional lands of those whom we know today as the Ohlone people. Ohlone territory spans from San Francisco east towards Oakland and south towards Monterey. 8 language dialects exist within this territory, and historically there are over 60 village sites. It is important that we recognize the original stewards of the territory. We pay our respect to elders, both past and present. We acknowledge that not only are we on their lands, but that they are still here and part of the community. There are 3 active community groups that have indigenous ancestry to this territory, and they are Confederated Villages of Lishan, Himmaran of Ohlone, Bay Miwok, Plains Miwok, and Muwekma tribe. Thank you. And now just some brief housekeeping. If you're joining us from the Mustard Square interface, we would love for you to interact with us in the post, in the chat box with comments and questions throughout the event. Later in the program, we have allotted a little bit of time for a Q&A session to answer any questions you may have. So now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our featured guest for today. Kent Wong escaped the Cultural Revolution over water to Hong Kong and shortly after moved to the United States as a refugee. He earned his bachelor's degree at the University of Washington, his MD at Harvard Medical School, and after residency at Stanford, he practiced as an anesthesiologist. He is now retired and lives near Seattle. And joining him is Freddie Wong. Freddie was featured in Forbes 2015 30 Under 30, Hollywood Reporter's Silicon Beach Power 25, and won the 2014 Webby for Film and Video Person of the Year. He co-directed the award-winning series Video Game High School, as well as Hulu's RocketJump the Show and Dimension 404. So I'll go ahead and spotlight you all. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having us. Thanks so much to the OACC for hosting this event and taking some time out. Thanks everybody who are hanging out here virtually to hear us talk about my dad's book, Swimming to Freedom. I guess I'll just start by saying that this has been a very long project in terms of you getting this story down into the page, right? I mean, I remember growing up and we would sometimes talk about it at dinner, right? You would bring up some of the stories. You would say, oh, this is, you would talk about one thing that had happened. And I remember, and this is a very, very small thing, but I guess your time, I think, planting rice as a result of, time in the villages that you were sent to, you're very picky about your rice now. Like, can you tell the difference between good rice and bad rice very accurately?
Oh, yes.
Like what? But like, so when you started out, like, I mean, I guess I'll start with, why do you feel like you wanted to tell the story after all this time?
Well, I think someone has to do the job of telling the stories, because I've been waiting and hoping some people will write a story, but I has been very disappointed because I know a lot of people in America, Chinese Americans, my friends, and they went through a lot of difficult times, just like I have. And nobody talk about writing down the stories.
Why do you think that is?
And I think Chinese culture tend to try to say success, good things, good life to their children. And also today, because China has become so powerful, a lot of parents think they want their children someday might have some business or interaction with China. So they don't want to, they carry this bad memories, say that, oh, my parents suffer so much. And then if they might affect their attitude, or they might even say something not appropriate in China, right? That will get them into trouble.
Because I've had a couple, since this book has come out, and it's out now, and so in that time, even though it's been out only for a little bit, I've sent you some of these, right? I've had some people reach out to me on Twitter, they reach out on Discord, they say like, there was one story, someone had the book, they were reading it, and someone else was like, oh, what's this about? And then they said, oh, my dad was, and then another person who reached out to me said that, the book caused their dad, they pointed out, I thought this was a very funny detail, but they pointed out so this is the cover of it, and this is someone, swimming freestyle, and they pointed out, they're like, it would have been breaststroke.
That's true. That's quite true. We don't use this stroke.
So you don't use this stroke. So they're like, he's like, I understand there's a little bit of creative license for the cover, but the stroke was breaststroke. Because
breaststroke is very, very hard to put it in a picture like this. That's more like dramatic. So I did not object to it.
But because of that little bit of conversation, then he's got more stories out of it. Why do you think, even in private, is it so hard for the stories from the Cultural Revolution to be heard, even within the, not even talking about going publicly, not about talking about writing a book, just at home? I think my impression is there's a lot of people who have parents who lived through it, who are here now, and they don't really talk about that time. And it's, I think, a very painful time period for them. Why do you think even that there's not a lot of discussion?
Yeah, and also, if and in my book, I also mentioned that a lot of people during those times, now they are baby boomers now, and they actually reformed two group of people fighting, right? In my book, I put that as the two group of records. One say that we are the loyalists, The other one is say we are the rebels. And they basically from two classes of people. In China, people divided into classes in communist China. So you don't know the parents, if the parent on the wrong side of the group, they might be feeling guilty of they hurting people, right? And then also this history is really they want to bury it for good. Okay. And two things really get me going is even, your good friend, John Chu, he said, well, because in my book, I wrote that if nobody write it, this page will be empty, right? Someone have to fill this gap of the history of a culture and what changed China, because they're very profound changes. And then, of course, in this book, I also mentioned, besides the two classes of people, we also have a group called idlers. That's my term. Nobody used to call idlers. Sure. Idler means we just don't join any of the fightings. We stay home. Just every day stay home and then have some fun, whatever, hopefully.
I think that's one of the things I thought was really interesting. Learning more about this time period was, I think it's very easy when we look at big, large historical moments and big historical events to be very broad with the way we understand it. And one of the things I thought was very interesting with the limited media we have around the Cultural Revolution, because my mom is from like northern China, from Beijing originally, and you're from southern China. And I remember one of the stories that you would talk about was how, this idea of this huge communistic fervor is stronger in Beijing, right? But the farther away you get, the more rural you get. You were telling stories about how people were like, they don't really care. Like, what was the attitude to like Chairman Mao, like down in the south in the farms?
Oh yeah, we always say that the mountain at the emperor, the mountains so high and the emperors far away. We don't really care about them, right? And then also we always see Cantonese, Guangdong province, the southern province, north of Hong Kong. We always feel we seems a lot more advanced in knowing the world. We know what a capitalist society look like because we saw those people dress differently, right? When they visit China,
because of the Canton, original like opium wars level, like at that time, in terms of the colonization.
Right. And then also the interesting thing is a lot of people in China, even today, when they see, wait a minute, people swim to Hong Kong during those times, they say, you are lying, you're kidding. And then because there's a 23 province in China, while Guangdong province only one. And Guangdong people, in this book, I really describe Guangdong people is not really that political. If they say, if a life getting too hard, they say, get help, right? So that's why they build a railroad. Right, since we are talking about Oakland, right? Sacramento, right? The first time the coolies, right? The coolie come in the more than 150 years ago. I can really picture them to light up there in Sacramento, and then they on their tray, right? All up to High Sierra.
So you're saying it's an attitude
to extend the railroad, finish,
But see, that's really interesting to me because, again, I think when we didn't really get a lot of, teachings on the Chinese Cultural Revolution, just very broad, Chairman Mao. And so I think that was one of the things that I thought was really interesting learning about, was seeing like, oh, no, it wasn't one unified, I think like all, major socio-political movements, not one big unified thing. There's always gradations to it, and I think I remember you talking about, because one of the questions that I had, because when you were practicing the swim is depending on where you would go from, 5 to 10 miles, right? Like of coast, of open ocean to do it. And you would talk about, and you describe in the book as well, practicing, training, right? So what was the training that you would do it at the pools?
Right? We do in the pool. We used to go out in the morning, very early morning, and then you can see all these people doing the frog stroke lap swimming. And then we all know we are because 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you in the swimming pool just keep back and forth. And then we all know the one thing in common, right? And then we also, in Chinese culture, it's very interesting. If you smile to someone, people say this guy has some mental issue. That's crazy, right? They say this crazy. And then we smile at each other.
Because you all knew.
Of course, we know we all share the same goal, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes if you see someone swim fast, we raise the big thumb, say, hey, good. I say,
Well, let me ask you this then. If you all knew that that's what you were practicing for, how come wouldn't the police step in? Like, wouldn't they know as well? Like, how come they let you practice so openly like that?
you see, the Hong Kong really have a larger relationship with Guangdong province. There are lots of relatives there, right? I bet some of the policemen, they might have relatives from Hong Kong too, right?
Right.
So in Hong Kong, Guangdong, Canton City, seems kind of tolerance to people try to escape. Sometimes we would joke, say, well, maybe his relative is also making already, right? So he might just say, okay, just let this guy go.
So let me ask you this then, because so it's a little, probably a little bit looser, but there was still penalties, right? Because you tried to, again, not to spoil too much of the book, but this wasn't just a one and done, you made it and you were good. There was 3 attempts and 3 different approaches to sort of varying levels of success. The first time you got caught at the edge of the water, right? So what was that? What was that story? What was that like that night? Right? Because you were waiting,
right. And then usually you escape from Midway, about 50 miles north of Hong Kong. You get to a place, someone help you to set. You high until dark. Then you start to cross the mountains. And then every day you hide during the daytime in the mountains.
So you're just resting at that time.
You're resting, and then you cross mountains, and then the fields, paddy fields,
When you're resting and you're waiting, probably pretty rural, right? Not a lot of people around where you're waiting.
Yeah, because you are up in the mountains, you hide in the bush, you don't make noises. And then if someone's see you down there, they say, well, if I go up to get these guys and they are going to run and then one minute spend home. Right? They don't get paid, right?
Well, but what was that like? Because, that's a long day to wait.
Oh, yeah.
So what did you sleep? Like, what was that like waiting?
Waiting, you usually sleep. And then usually the first couple of days you talk. And then after 3 days, just go walk around, right? Because after 3 days, you will have nothing to talk about anymore. And then you just wait and you look at the sky and then the way you hope the sun.
So, but when you got there, when you got down to the water first time, what was that like being caught there?
Okay. So we choose that place called Dongpingzhou, right? The little island. You go down to the coast, and then the mountain, really the foothills is by the ocean. So then you cross the coast, and then that's open space. And if you are lucky, and then you've got high tide, so you can very easily get into the water. And the first time we are just not lucky. We have the army patrolled, and we didn't see them, and they saw us, and so we got caught. Yeah.
So in terms of the penalties of that, what happened then?
The penalties, since we create a different class of so-called criminals, right? And then the Chinese Communist Party says that so many people escape
or trying to escape.
Escape. And then I heard the rumor say that during the Nixon visit China, one of the American reporters asked the Premier Zhou Enlai, say, well, you say China is so good, how come so many people escape to Hong Kong? And I believe the rumor is also say that I say, oh, no, they are not escaped. They love China. They just want to visit their family, friends, family relatives.
In Hong Kong.
And then so they say they are just illegal visitation, right? As soon as he say this one, now we create a different kind of anti-revolutionary. This kind is, during those days, if you want to escape to Taiwan, the order is shoot, even before a warning.
Yeah.
And then also, if you want to escape the Soviet Union, shoot. Okay, just shoot you there, and then they don't even care.
Yeah.
But this one seems to have this kind of a classification. They are illegal visits, right? They will catch them and then send it back to the village to reform because everybody's from the village, right? After
and also the people, once you reach Hong Kong, everybody there was sending money back too, right?
Oh yeah, and then that's true. Yeah, you're exactly right. China need foreign currencies at that time. Only they can get is from Hong Kong, And then they know this, the Chinese people, then when they escape to Hong Kong, they work so hard, they always send money back to China. And then China, the People's Bank of China, when they get the money, they convert it into, they take the Hong Kong dollar, they give you the Chinese yuan. So they can use the Hong Kong money to buy maybe the alcohol, cigarette for the officials.
So let me ask you then, but you still spent time in jail though, right? This is not just something where they catch you in this. I don't want to downplay, you know.
No. They put it in the so-called detention center because they don't have enough jails. There's so many of them. Every night they can arrest several hundreds of them. And then so they put it in that, and then the detention center really want to try to figure out where you're from, who helped you to escape, and then send you back to the village, say go to be continued to be re-educated by the president.
Can you talk a little bit about that time in the detention center?
Oh yeah, the detention center.
Like what were you eating? Like what was the food?
Oh, the food is lousy. It's always
well, of course, but
and then always very little.
Yeah.
And then is the dirty dark, very dirty rice, and then some salty vegetables. I remember once a while there's a little small piece of fatty pork. One of the guy grab the pork and then suck it, hold it into the mouth, right? Want to choke, right? And then of course they use the big spoon, whip spoon, long
for
handle,
cooking.
It just rack that guy's brain. And then the guy holding the head, right?
Yeah.
And then he hit his head and the hand. And then later I say to that guy, it's not worth it. No, I just won the Hong Kong horse race. Royal Club horse race, and that is hungry is always a problem. And then also we turn that into a university of escape. Everybody exchange opinions. And since I'm caught from the coast, so I'm pretty respected because I got a lot of experience.
Like what would you exchange? What would they talk about?
I talk about where did you start, right? And then who helped you and how you pass the police checkpoint and what kind of fake document you use.
Yeah.
And then also who prepared the food, what kind of food is good and things like that.
That actually, this is one of those weird things where, because I think of your experience, I remember there was always sometimes you would get very strange lessons from you growing up. I remember one time you talked about how to lie to people.
Oh yeah.
How do you lie to someone?
Yeah, if you lie to someone,
because you had to do this. You had to lie to
the policeman, right? When they see you, the worst thing, you don't look at him in his eyes, right? You just look at him. Don't be scared. Just look at him, and you don't need to smile. Smile is bad, right? Nobody smiles in China. Okay, you can't say much. Just seems as sincere the way you look as possible, right? Innocent. Just means you're just dumb and innocent. That's good way to look at. And then and also the policeman, you ask you a lot of questions. They look at your fake documents, and then they will ask. They try to scare you. They say, who's your leader? What's the name?
Your village leader that you were
right, village leader.
Yeah.
And then I always teach people, when I say teach means I really become an expert, after second time, right? Become a well-respected because an expert and then notorious. When they say I'm famous, I say, no, I'm notorious better. So I tell them, just use your own village you went to because you know everything there. And then
so they're saying don't lie. Use this is, by the way, a CIA technique, which is they say whenever the CIA says, like, if you use a fake name, make sure the name is similar to yours so that you're not so far away that you feel like you need to always be remembering it. So there's some familiarity.
Yeah, well, one time, we have the village leader and people call him One-Eye Dragon because he lose one eye. And I just say that, who's your village leader? Village leader. I say, well, we call him One-Eye Dragon. The guy, the policeman, look at me and say, who? I said, oh, no, Conrad Lee.
But which is wild because
you'll be so authentic because you talk about your life and say, how far away from the bus station, what do you do there, and just tell them your life.
Yeah.
But in the village.
So you're saying lying is all about telling as much truth as possible.
That's true. Because the chance of the policeman know any relatives in your village
none, right?
is none, almost none, right?
Yeah.
And this instead you try to come up something, especially when you have a couple people, they are all from the same area, right?
Yeah.
They say, okay, wait, did that guy say it's only how many minutes? And you say an hour, right? It's just then immediate. It's a problem.
So when I remember also some of the stories you would talk about, like making fake documents and like compasses and stuff. How did that knowledge get transmitted? How did you even know to do that, and how that process?
Yeah, I was very proud to be the one to make the most sophisticated, the fake stamp.
How did you make a fake stamp for your documents?
The fake stamp, my friends introduced me to a factory worker, and then his job is making those stamp for like aluminum plate, right? The bicycle, the number.
Oh, okay,
and then basically the aluminum, they use it in the image. First, you take an image like a films, you use a glue on top of the aluminum plate, and then you expose, and then you wash them off, and then you erode all these user assets to eat away all the aluminum. That become like a stamp. So we make that
to stamp your own document.
Stamp document, because another way to do it, everybody do it, is that they wash the document, wash off the ink. But the policeman is very good. You look at the document, they say, well, there's a water spot. Then immediately you got arrested. So our documents always kind of authentic look and then nice. So there's no problem with that. So, but I did not teach people how to do that because there will be a big crime. So I keep that secret. And then my friend also joined me to do that. He just lied to say he's so good, and then try to say, hey, should we make some money to make these little people say,
to sell the
how you dare?
Yeah. Well, so again, that's what's interesting about the stories, because I think it's very serious. There's a lot at stake, but it seems sometimes, you're hearing about it, it's just a crazy story. But let me ask you this, because, you spent time in the, detention centers, you were still, doing labor in the villages. Of the people who went, you yourself know people who didn't make it.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So what is that in terms of the people who didn't make it? What are those stories, and how come, who are the people we won't be hearing from ever because of that? Right.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's one of the reasons I wrote a book, because 3 of my friends died in the water, and then I think the families just bury the stories, because in China there's something you don't want to tell people about, and even today it's not a good story.
Do you know how they died? Oh,
they died in the.
How did you hear about it at the time? How did you hear about it?
Especially the first one is we the first escaped, and then the next year, and then the next new seasons comes, and then he's so impatient. He say, I have to go, and then that was in April. I said, no, please don't go because it's too cold, the water. They say, well, since you are still not ready. I say, no, I need to help my sister to make it first, and then we'll go. And then he said, no, I cannot wait because he's very poor, he has no money. And then the other group people say, I'm good, you prepare everything for you, the food and documents and everything, but you just, as a guy, we walk the same way, guys do that. And then he went, and then I really blame myself, say I should really stop him, try to, and then I say, if I don't write this story, people die, nobody will remember, because if their family just hide this story, you don't want to tell anybody. So I think that I owe him that way. That's a story, to write a story. The other guy that died is the very strong guy, very big guy, good swimmer, and caught in a big fish net.
Oh, whoa.
Oh, yeah. And then because he didn't realize the fisherman set up the net for the fish, and then he just hit into it and then got tangled, and then.
So even if you're someone who's like strong and built, it's no guarantee though.
The weather is one problem, and then also there's a lot of, also some people just typhoon, the hurricane. Because when you are in mountain for 10 days or something, or 8 days, many things can happen, southern China, right? And then you never have a radio. to give you a warning. You get into the typhoon, they come quickly, and then they disappear quickly too. They never last long. Just like hurricane, right? They swept through and then it's gone. But if you are in the water, then you're dead. Then you die. You die. There's no way to avoid it. Yeah.
So the second time you made it all the way to Hong Kong.
In the Hong Kong water,
the waters of it, but you were still picked up.
Yes, picked up. Yeah.
So what is that experience being so close?
That
to
was
it?
just so heartbroken.
Yeah.
Because I can see Hong Kong there, and also the Chinese fishermen, they against the law, they cross water to Hong Kong. You know, in the midline, supposed to Hong Kong water.
Yeah.
But Chinese government pay the money to the fishermen. They are fishermen, and then they are also they are in the militia. You know, they are the militia, right? They have gun, and then they catch them, and they can get some money. I believe it's $50 a head or something. That's a lot of money at that time in China. So that's really is that really hurt. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I bet. Yeah, after all of that. So one of the
the other thing is just like continue that one, right? When we caught that, sent to the detention center, wow, people really respect me wow that time because I only have a short. You even don't have that shirt, right? Nothing, right? Just a short.
Oh, because you got pulled into the detention center wearing nothing.
Nothing, and then no shoes, right? Just
so that means that they caught you in the water.
Water, so and then people say, "Wow, this guy is great because it's in the water." So
that's wild.
That's wild.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to talk about, which I thought was always interesting, is, and this is, you don't really talk too much about this in the book, but there's a spiritual element here because you talk about face reading.
Oh yeah.
So this is, so again, I'm educated here. I'm like, there's palm reading, but like the Chinese, we have face reading, which is like broadly, it's like this represents the first part of your life, this represents the middle part of your life, this represents the end of your life, and sort of the proportion of features. And you always talk about how it's like, oh, like, so and so politician or so and so business person has a good nose, which means that they're going to be successful. And like I always felt like that's like but part of the story is you had your Pang Lao, so you had the guy who was like the face reader for you, right? Yeah. So what happened with just because I think nobody knows this part, it's just a crazy part of the story, but like, what was that? So it started with, he said, you can't make it. He read your face and said you couldn't make it. So tell me the story about it.
This one, when I say this, public review say, wow, this guy say he went to Harvard, he believe this kind things, right? That's just kind of I never told anybody or my classmate at Harvard Medical School because I know there will be such a embarrassing if they know about.
But it's such a crazy story.
Crazy story, and Chinese believe that. Chinese, just like you say, you're exactly right. According to your birth time, right? And also another one to look at your face. And then we come across a couple guys that are very good, and then they look at me. You see my here.
Yeah, right here.
人中, the Chinese call 人中.
This part?
In between eyes, right? They say, wow, it's not that full. What that mean? They say, well, you can succeed in doing things, but it goes through a lot of hardship. I really don't want to hear that. I say, no. I can do better than that. I say, no. And then and this is really so the people.
Yeah, but the first time. But you're saying the first time that guy predicted that you couldn't make it.
Yeah, and then first time, and say he looked at that. He really serious. He looked at from all angles. Say, pull me close to the window and look at that. I say, no. I say, well, your time's not here. I say, what do you mean? You can't make it. I say, but you won't die. That means I still have a life, but I just can't make it. And then I say, this is nonsense, right? But I get caught.
Okay. And I say, the second time you still went, right?
The second time, even that one is more strange. And then in the swimming pool, right? I got no couple.
Yeah.
And then they ready to go.
Yeah.
And then I saw this guy called Peng Lao Si. I said, hey, Peng Lao Si. I say, I have two friends. They are ready to go. And then he looked at them. And then he said, fine. I said, I can't tell anything today. And then he walked away. I said, that does not look like him. And then I catch him. I say, what's wrong? I say, well, I better not to say, because, and then say, you got to tell me because I'm going to keep it a secret. They say, they cannot go together because the women looked very strong.
Yeah.
The men look weak.
Yeah.
They cannot go together. Only one can make it. And then, but they are that kind of personality, they won't believe in you. So I say, what should I do? If I don't tell them, and then if something happened, I feel guilty.
Yeah.
Right? So the finally say, well, please don't tell them because they are that kind of person, they won't listen to you anyway. And then the later to just want to make myself feel a little bit better. And I volunteer to ask, I drop them they try to go to Macau on the other side.
So there's a lot of ways to do it.
That's way, yeah. And then I say, I volunteer also drive them, the bicycle.
Yeah.
And there's another guy too, right? You need two person sit on the back of the rack, right? The bicycle, right? So I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Send them to bury under a pile. That means high before sunset.
Yeah.
Before they escape. And we did that successfully.
Yeah. But then what happened to those two?
But the guy died. And then the woman make it. Can you believe that? That really shocked me. I say, wow, this guy's really telling the truth, right? Something there.
Maybe.
But the last time is interesting.
So when my dad tells a story, up until this point, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Well, I mean, you can get lucky, right? But the last time is really interesting.
The last time is really interesting. And then Taisan, the region all the coolies come from, fishermen, and then we also have the Hong Kong smugglers to meet in the international water.
Yeah,
very secret.
So the key was after 2 times of trying to attempt to swim, the third time, the way that you were getting there is you were going to be smuggled in via boat to meet with international waters, to meet with a boat in Hong Kong, which will then pick you up, transfer you to that boat, and then take you in.
Yeah, that's a group of people.
Were you tired of swimming?
No, because that's a winter time,
right. So wintertime, there's because the water's too cold.
And then also I know people they can pay, right? In Hong Kong. That's why they give me one seat.
I see.
So I think, but that one, if we get caught, that will be in jail for many years now because that is an organized crime now. It's no longer.
It's not illegal. You just you're not. You can't say that that's just illegal visitation.
Oh no. And then so I keep it very secret.
Right.
One day. He dropped by for nowhere. He is a good Peng Lao Shi is very, it's a good friend of a family, right? Drop by, and he look at me and say, Kent, what are you waiting for? I said, what are you talking about? Your time's here now. Go anytime. I say, well, it was very cold, right? December now. I say, now you want me to become a ice pop or something, right? He's gonna die in the water. I say, then he say, I don't know what kind of way you are going to choose to go, what way you are going to go, but you have to go now. Your time's here now. So the next day, okay, don't wash your face tomorrow morning. I'm going to come back. Okay, just double check to make sure I'm right. So I just be honest, wait from 8 o'clock, wait to 10 o'clock. He show up. He look at me and say, yeah, I'm right yesterday. Just go. Then I feel very good now. To make this become more convincing is I suppose brought 2 elderly couple to there because they paid the money, the Hong Kong smugglers. When we got to that place, and then we have to take a little ferry boat, to Yaolu, and then the flat bottom boat, they only allow 2 persons. Okay, there's a fisherman come out to pick us up and say, Ken, let's go first. Tell them we are here now, and there are 2 elderly couple. They can wait in the tea house.
Yeah.
And then after we cross that, when that guy come back, they got arrested. So that means why I'm exams, right? I keep asking myself, say, Peng Lao Shi may be right.
Yeah.
I suppose that that's to be success that this tyrants to see, right? So that means that really, I just don't know how to explain that. So that's one of the things Chinese, they really believe in fortune telling.
And do you, at this point, what do you think?
I will not say no, right? But I will not recommend people because this is so foreign, the concept. People, and then some of the professors, when they read the book, they recommend, they come and say, this book is kind of a odd in a sense,
Yeah.
because they talk about fortune telling, and also they talk about calling the mother mommy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
isn't it something?
no, again, it's one of those things. It's one of those weird stories that,
Right.
and it's just a small story because we visited Bangladesh
Yeah,
later.
yeah, right, yeah.
So I think he recommended something. We did this. I remember my brother and myself and my parents. We went to Hong Kong, and it was like from the movie Bicycle Thieves. Like literally, there was this guy telling it, this fortune teller. And he's sitting there telling, and then the thing about Chinese fortune telling is so specific.
Yeah.
Like you're sitting there, he was saying like, I remember he was saying to somebody, it's like, oh, your business needs a green sign facing in this direction to be successful, like that kind of stuff. And I was sitting there like leaning back, like my mom, like, if this guy knows what he's talking about, how come he's not playing? He should be playing the stock market, right?
Right.
And then
no, he loses lots of money in stock market.
So I'm like, what is this guy? But so this fortune teller we were seeing, he gets a call in the middle of this. And he makes everyone wait, and she says some things and hangs up. I'm like, what was that about? My mom goes like, that's him talking to his stockbroker. So I guess you never know. So I guess what we're getting kind of close here. I know that we want to open up and we can see the chat, by the way, so we can answer questions.
We answer questions. Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to ask, one more thing before we sort of go to questions, which is what was Hong Kong and America, right? Because you went to Hong Kong first, then you went to America. What was that? What did it mean to you back then?
Well, Hong Kong, I wrote the op-ed, you remember that? And then Hong Kong to me is some place, get all my senses back. The people say, what are you talking about? My sense, the smell in China, right? That really not that many good smell, like a perfume, never. But also stinky things smell, okay? My color sense, blue, dark, black, dark blue, black, and white, right? And when I get to Hong Kong, all of a sudden, this world seems so the full spectrum of a color, sense, noise, sounds, and everything. The automobile, and all those become a real new world. Remember, you always say, Ken, how come you always listen to those old 60s or 70s music?
Yeah, you were really into two things, which is old cinema and also...
Yeah, because when we write a book, I turn on those music because that brings me the feeling back. Just imagine you are put in a cave.
Yeah.
In a cave, right?
Sure.
Until you're 20-some years old, and all of a sudden come up to, okay, let's go to New York.
Yeah.
Then you say, all bombarding, right? It's just, that's why I say, yes, Hong Kong is the pearl of Asia, Asia, right? But for me, it's more like a paradise. You see, this kind of feeling is a very, very difficult to describe. So I say, the only thing can describe is a sense separation to off, so then look at how the world is this way. So, and by this token, I think the world got to have varieties, right? Yeah. People say Americans should be a melting pot. Yeah, but people add another sentence, say that, well, in this melting pot, every ingredient got to be distinctive, right? Nice. Don't can we just melt to
but you want the variety of all of that too.
So that means you can apply that to human races, right? You can apply to all kind of food, all kind of food. That's how the nature. You look at the nature, right? So all kind of thing that would make a beautiful world.
So let me ask you this: and when someone reads this book, I've already heard stories about sort of the younger generation talking about this with older generation, people who didn't want to sort of talk to it. What do you want people to leave after they're done with the book? What do you want to leave them with?
I want to let the people know that the humans always they are struggle for better, right? They inherit that way. And then there's a lot of system, like a communist China. They try to anti-humanity, anti-nature to control people, right? And then you let the people free. You let the people be equal, right? You don't discriminate against some people because you think they are not classified as a revolutionary versus not revolutionary. And then that is a tragedy. And then we have to avoid all kind of, you can extrapolate this to all kind of situations.
Sure.
Right. So that's what I think that's one takeaway.
And also another thing that we're finishing up right now. One of the things that we're working on is we know that a lot of this older generation, the choice to write this in English is because I think after you've been here for so long, English started to kind of become your language.
Right.
And I remember talking to you about this and the feeling of like, oh, to write it in Chinese would be probably harder to express compared to now having spent so much time speaking English. So one of the things that we are working on is we are going to be putting out another version of this in Chinese language for people who are Chinese is their first language or reading in Chinese, and as a way of sort of understanding of like, okay, there's the people who I think who are interested in this story. There's a lot of them who may not necessarily have English reading sort of familiarity compared to Chinese language reading familiarity. So that's something that we are finishing up as well, that we're very excited about. I think I'd love to open, we have about 15 minutes left. I'd love to open this up to questions from the group. I see there's some folks, I see some folks here talking about stuff. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to jump in and kick this in. I guess I'll start. Let me ask you this. This is from Sid Holt. Did the process of writing the book change the way you thought about your experiences or bring something up that you didn't remember or expect? Because writing this, you're digging into the old memories and stuff. What happened there? Did you find old things that you didn't expect when you were?
I have to say that the writing this book is the taking a lot of courage, right? Because you always recommend me to write a book. I say, I'm going to write a movie script easier. But when I decided to write this book, and then one thing I say, I'm not going to read any memoir, English memoir. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask myself, what is really still, I feel so passionate or so touched to it. And then I write it down. I want to say how people live through that individually, all the details. And then I also say, well, I really don't want people to fall asleep reading the book, right? Because I know myself, if I read a book after some page, I watch the TV, and then
yes, we've talked about this.
As soon as I fall asleep, I say, forget about it. I'm not going to continue. So I say, how I can do that? By say, I think I'm going to keep detail. I'm going to keep the emotion. I try to really go back to what do I feel? I keep asking myself, what is that really true lie and why I feel it that way? Mm-hmm. And then were you able to? But I really want to say that I almost forgot is the editor, Jameson of Abram Books. He's just a great guy. Mm. He said, Kent, I want you to, when you get in the detail, you pull yourself out to see what happened during that time in the whole world, right? Mm-hmm. So I really, that's good. So I really connect to what happened to the United States, mm-hmm. the Vietnam, because there's a lot of war going on, the Soviet Union, how they interact.
Yeah,
I put them together.
A busy time period for global geopolitics.
Yeah, and then because I say I even say to you, I remember I say, well, if Jameson is my college English professor, I will say, Mark will take more English class. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Did the process bring up memories that you had forgotten?
Yes, and then sometimes I get stuck there, and I just put it aside, and then I go take a long walk.
Yeah,
and then
you walk more than I think any other human being I know.
I know, but I thought, I walk. Sometimes I walk 5 or 7 miles. I just keep thinking why and what and when, and then I also talk to my friends too, get the memory back.
Yeah. So Su Yi asks, Kent, were you able to meet up with other successful swimmers, either in Hong Kong or in the US? Do you stay in touch with the people who weren't successful and in China? I met 2 sisters who were successful, but the brother was caught. The sisters ended up swimming in circles before they finally got to Hong Kong. So what about now, of the people remaining? And, I think all you folks are getting older now. Like, do you still talk to them? Do you still?
Oh, yeah. And then I have a good relationship with all my classmates, right? But I can see I visit one of my classmates, and then I stay with my classmate, and then we all got caught. And then the last time when I get the last chance to escape, I say, wow, I never say goodbye to him, and I want to explain it to him. And another classmate said, "Oh, Ken, you don't need to worry about that because everybody knows if you don't wait for him the second time, he'll die in the water." I said, "Really? That really touched me." And finally, when we met, and then we have a good conversation, and then but I can see the Cultural Revolution has caused such a deep divide into the people, the two group of people. We can all sit together and have dinner now, but you can see the facial expression and conversation, how they sit together. And then they really had a big division still there. Yeah. So they mean the old hatreds or old
prejudice too.
It's
still
very hard to heal.
Yeah.
So I think that also is the lesson Americans should learn today, right? So you really need to understand each other and then tolerate, right? And then otherwise the wound becomes so deep, it's very hard to heal. That's bad. Yeah.
I remember one of the things that was interesting about, you were talking about sort of the other people, and this is where I think the history gets really interesting. It's not a situation. One of the weird things about when post-cultural revolution China is, in a lot of ways, there's some parallels I see to like post-fall of the Soviet Union, because you had a very strongly state-controlled economy suddenly open up. There was I think you even talked about this too, where there were situations where people you knew who stuck around were educated enough and in a unique position when this country, when the collapse of the communist side, or not fully, but like when the transition happened, they were able to get into industry and make a lot of money and become rich, right? There was the generation that was around to take advantage of this shift. It's not a nice, clean cut, simple story that just ends. Okay, the culture, you made it. It's like, no, the people who stayed there are the ones who have a hand in building up China to where it became now, right? In terms of the factories and the exports and and that whole thing. So it's just the story keeps rolling. So I think that's always interesting. It's very tempting sometimes when you hear a story, you'd be like, oh, and then it ended, and then they were everyone's together, and I was like, no, it keeps changing.
Keep changing. That's true. If you want to understand China, is not just so simple a story, because you have to bring all their culture, their history, and then the people, how they interact. Yeah, I know a lot of still contact with a lot of Chinese, freedom swimmers, but we seldom talk about these things now. And then because it seemed to me today there's so many things going on, right? Your life,
I think things are always going on.
And then that's why we want to do the Chinese version, right? We want the older generation, and then I really want to see the younger generation read the English version. Say, hey, Dad, you are one of them. How come you didn't tell the story?
So someone here, we have Vincent Liu, who says, "Thank you, Ken, for writing this book. My mom also escaped to Hong Kong by swimming in the 70s.
Congratulations!"
But rarely talked about her experience. When I translated your op-ed for her, she started opening up and shared details I've never heard before.
That's a good one. That made me have a goosebump, because what we really want to see is that the son will say, "Hey, we got the Chinese version. You read," and they say, "Oh, I can tell you more," right? And then
because this is not good, because it's such a complex story. This is not a story with just one point of view.
That's true.
But right now, this because prior to the doing this book, I was looking around, and I was looking. There's a couple of books published in Chinese in Hong Kong from this, but there's really not a lot talked about this. So that was one of the I think. It's a story with a lot of viewpoints, and this is your viewpoint from your experience through it. But a lot of people went through this. The estimates, 500,000 to millions. Like, it's a lot. We don't know, right? At the end of the day, you'll never know the exact number, because you'll never know how many. You'll never hear the statistics from a totalitarian government at the time of the people who didn't make it, right? And so the hope is, I think, and hearing these stories, hearing like Vincent's story here, it's like, I think it's something that we hope. It can become a vehicle for which you can connect with the generation that went through it, and hopefully hear those stories, and hopefully not lose those stories as well, right?
Yeah, right. And then also bear in mind that a lot of even freedom swimmer, they become a very Chinese nationalistic, because China become rich. So it's really hard
Yeah, that's the other thing that's too. I think a lot of people
yeah.
think, oh, well, you escape from the Cultural Revolution.
You must
Surely you must be
anti-China
anti-China.
something.
Not
No,
necessarily,
yeah,
right?
there's
People are
some
more
really-
complicated than that.
Yeah,
right?
oh yeah, the life is so complicated. People
Yeah.
are so complicated. Yeah.
Can I ask you? Okay, this is a good question. Maurice Collins, do you think any of these experiences contribute to your decision to go to medicine? So yeah, after all this, why you become a doctor?
Oh, okay. So the
Which is, I think,
so yeah, that's interesting. My father really want the children to be doctors, and then also I really don't know much about America. Today I even always talk to my son, say, well, if I know Steve Jobs is doing all this computer things, I should go computer because I.
In 2020, is hindsight is easy.
Yeah, but no, because my interest really not in medicine because I choose a very difficult job, right? Medicine is all reading.
I remember
reading.
you told me that because in medicine, obviously, one of the first things you got to learn anatomy, right?
Yeah.
And then all the anatomical terms are like Latin.
Right.
So you don't even speak English, and you have to learn Latin for all of this.
Right. So that I really is choose the toughest things for to. Escape,
but why? But why?
3 times, right? This one.
But there's also, I think, there was a culture. There's a cultural thing too, right? The idea of doctor, Harvard. Like Harvard is like, you told me that your decision to go to Harvard was almost because that was the one people at home heard about.
Oh yeah, and then I don't tell anybody. I even apply to Harvard and Yale because I even don't tell my parents because they say. Because I just don't see myself can be in it. But when I do so well, so everybody accept me. I say, oh, maybe I get something. Right? And then I say, I choose the one I really, in the book, I say, well, it's just treat me like a friend. And I was such good interview. And then he really made me cry when I did, I like to.
You're talking about the person who interviewed you.
Interview me. And when I leave the building, I really drop tears.
Yeah.
I'm that kind of person, easy to drop tears, right? That you probably is different, stronger than me.
I don't know.
You are also weak too, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but like being a doctor is kind of weird though, compared to, right? I guess.
But I think being a doctor also goes through this is good because I really people they like me because I treat them with I care about them, right?
Yeah.
Because I know I always get those requests, the anesthesia. I take things very seriously when I do anesthesia, and then they seems like me, and also the surgeon they seem kind of like me too because I can turn over fast. They don't waste time to drinking coffee.
And that's, by the way, there's a whole nother book, of course, of all the stories from you in Hong Kong. For a while, you were an electronics salesman in Hong Kong.
Yeah, and then I always say that in Hong Kong, I learned capitalism, number one, how to make money.
But yeah, but then you came here, you became a doctor. So again, but this is the first part of that. So it's definitely, this is an interesting story. Matthew K brings this up. When you came to this country, technically, you're older than you are right now, right?
Yeah.
So I thought this was, when you came in, they asked you how old you were. And what your birthday was. And you didn't really know because of the Chinese lunar calendar and the translation of the time.
No, there's another story down behind that is because we still very scared, right? My mother say, your grandma say.
When you immigrated,
Yeah. Before the first time escape, say when you get to Hong Kong, change your name.
Yeah.
Okay. And then also change your age. You say, why? Because you're older now. If you so old when you go to America, or my parents always want me to go to your grandparent always want me to go to America to go to school, not go to the gold, okay? San Francisco. Okay. So then they say the school might not. The university might not take you because you're so old, right?
But this is them not knowing that. Of course, the universities
and then
don't
in the
care.
college, right? My classmate, one is 50-some years old, approached me, say, Ken, should we do a project together in the American project? I look at it, I say, then I write to my parents, say, 50-some years old is in the university, first guy on my class.
So you change your age.
Yeah.
So this doesn't seem like a big deal, except now your age is you're actually 3 years or so older.
Right, yeah.
So this isn't usually a big deal, except
when you go to Medicare, right?
When you get to Medicare, on the pay, you can't tell the government you lied about your age 50 years.
No, I talked to my attorney friends. I said, Kent, where's your birthday? And why you lie? I say, okay, forget about it. So don't even think about this one. So I say, oh, fine. I just,
So you had 3 years of no Social Security
no Social
just
Security
because.
and then the Medicare too, right?
Yeah.
You have to, but it's good because be honest, American give me everything I have.
Yeah.
So I think so. I'm more than grateful of this. So there's no problem with that. And then also good to be older too, right? Yeah, younger too, right? Younger, right?
Yeah, to
Because,
say
oh,
that
this
you're
guy's
younger.
young.
Yeah. No. And plus, they'll never check on that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be all the time that we have. I hope all of you sitting at home have enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for everyone who asked questions. Thank you to everybody who has spent the hour here this afternoon with us. Thank you, of course, to the OACC for hosting graciously and allowing us to get into this conversation. It's always a lot of fun talking about
We
this
don't
stuff.
squander the
You know what? If they feel
hours.
if they feel that way, they can ask for a refund. Yeah, it was free.
I like that. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much. The host, right? Is the
Yes,
host
yes,
right
the
there, the
host,
picture. I can
yes.
see a small picture.
I'm here for the Zoom technical support more than anything else.
Yeah.
Hello. Yes,
Did I do okay? Did we do okay?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I know we could go on for another hour comfortably, but do want to respect everyone's time together, especially the two of you. What a wonderful moment and just insight into, your family and your incredible story. And I could see from the chat activity that it's really resonating with a lot of folks. So I did want to quickly check in, are there any other upcoming events? Because we couldn't answer everyone's questions, but how can people stay in touch with you all?
So I'm on Twitter. I'm at F Wong. He's down here a lot too. So if you have any questions, if you want to talk, I don't know if I want to put you on Twitter. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what you would do on Twitter.
I even don't know how to do it.
So
I'm a dinosaur.
So I can communicate on that front. So keep an eye out there, and we'll be also. I know I saw some people asking about sort of the Chinese language version, which we're working on right now. Should be in the next couple of months or so. But that's the long and short of it.
Yeah, awesome. And so if you're the link to purchase the book is also out there. Please support the book. Please share it out, share those stories. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to Abrams Books for connecting.
Yes, thank you so much to Abrams.
Ken and Freddie. Thank you, Abrams Books.
Maya, yes. Thank you, Maya, too.
Yes, Maya, specifically. Also, if you do have a few minutes, we would love to get your feedback on our event survey. And then I also wanted to just drop in the next event coming up for OACC is on Friday, June 25th. It's called Community Rising, a mini concert and conversation with artists, activists, and community organizers that reimagines what safety can look like in our communities. We're going to open with an exclusive performance with Jason Chu and Alan Z, who are the lead artists of the Face Value album. It's an incredible album that just dropped last month, chronicling the key events and individuals in Asian American history. So please check that out. I think it's on Spotify and a couple other, wherever you get your music, you can find it there.
And this is going to be a video. You see some people maybe watching this as a YouTube video as well. So we'll have a link to be able to share this last hour as well. Yeah. Yes,
we will have a YouTube URL if you wanted to just share this out with any other people who should know about this book and about Kent. But that's all from my end. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again in the future.
Thank you very much,
Bye-bye.
everybody.